All right, so today we are going to talk about collisions and bouncing, okay? An object bounces, okay? An object bounces when a moving object hits a stationary object and then reflects off of it, okay? So we kind of know we all can bounce a ball. We know there's certain things we can do to make an object bounce better, okay? If we're going to talk about a basketball, we want it to bounce better, we need to do what to the basketball? Add more force, or maybe you could also add more air into it, couldn't you? A lot of things, and we know that rubber bounces better than, say, wood, okay? We know those things, but we're not really looking at it that way, okay? You're not really looking at it that way in physics, okay? When we are talking about in physics and we're talking about things bouncing, we really care about our impulse again. Remember, our impulse is our force times our change in time, okay? When an object bounces, it has a greater impulse, okay? What that's telling you is that either the force is different or it stays in contact longer. I know we have some questions on our quizzes about, like the bumper of the car, okay, of how it smashes, that the bumper is there for that impact, okay? The bumper is there, those crash zones is for that impact, because they want to decrease, they want to, the force isn't going to change, okay? But the force will be easier spread out if it's spread out over a longer change in time. My example of this would be if I want to hit you, okay? If I want to smack you. If I'm just, come here, Landon, we'll let you be the dummy today. Yeah. So come up here where we can see you, Landon.
All right. You got the video going?
Yeah, I got the video going. So I can do two things to Landon, okay? Didn't really do anything, correct? Didn't really feel much, did I? But the longer I keep my hand in contact, the more, the greater the impulse, the better it is, okay? The better it's moving. Thank you, Landon. Yes, sir, you're a good dummy. You're a good test dummy, okay? We see this all the time, okay? We see these crash zones. This is something that's relatively new that you people probably don't noticed, okay? Landon, congratulations on getting your driver's license yesterday. But I think of like road construction vehicles, okay? You've seen now is like in road construction, they have the truck and then they have the little trailer behind it. That's just some pipe, okay? That is because of impulse, okay? Because that is a crash zone is what they wanted to do. They want it to, they want that to crumple so the force does not then go into the truck that they're having, okay? So that's the point of that. But an impulse, okay, impulse is where we're really going with this, okay? Impulse really want to go with this. And the impulse required to bring an object to stop and then throw it back again is greater than just to bring it to stop, okay? Because our time in contact is there longer, okay? That's the really big thing in with that. So in karate, you've seen people want to smash a board, okay? How easy can you just take your hand and chop a board in half? Not very easily, okay? But if you do it and you're just trying to smash through it, it'd probably hurt your arm or your hand, wouldn't it? You'd probably break your hand, okay? But in karate, they teach a technique of how they do it is it's not just a smash through. They bounce their hand, okay? They bounce their hand to keep the contact time longer, okay? So the force is spread out over more time. Water wheels, okay, such as the Pelton wheel, okay, are U-shaped to create a bounce, to increase the impulse, okay? So bouncing is more effective. Bouncing happens because there's an impulse, okay? The greater the impulse, the greater the bounce. So our prime example of this, let's click on my screen, not your screen, is this. Newton's cradle. We all seen this? That's just going to continue to go and go and go. This demonstrates two things, okay? This demonstrates two things. Well, kinetic energy, yes, not what we're talking about right now. This is talking about bouncing, okay? This is talking about bouncing, okay? You can kind of see it if you would slow it down really slow, how it bounces and then it comes back, okay? It also demonstrates the law of conservation momentum. Newton's cradle will continue to go on forever, okay? If you had one of those things until you applied an unbalanced force to stop it. So that's the law of conservation momentum. But they bounce. But now let's look at these. Do these little ones ever really move? No. They just transfer the momentum, Okay, they just transfer the momentum. They're moving a little bit, but not much. Okay, they're not bouncing as much. These in ones, if you watch them, you can kind of see them. You can kind of see them bounce back and forth, and they're timing these bounces to be in phase. You know, the bounce of this one is going to be in phase with this other one hitting it and going it back that way. Okay, so that's Newton's cradle, a prime example of law of conservation of momentum and bouncing. A collision, okay, a collision is when two objects collide. We kind of know this. The net momentum we know is equal to the before and after. We've already mathematically described this the other day with our law of conservation of momentum, our calculated momentum. We've already mathematically described it. Okay. Today we're going to break it down into two different types of collisions. We have two types: elastic and inelastic. When you hear the term elastic, what do you think? Stretchy. And I think that's what most people think. That's not what we're talking about in this. Okay. Instead, elastic means, okay, they are not permanently deformed, okay? And there's a typo on this, I'm sorry, without generating heat is what it should say, okay? So elastic collisions do not deform something, okay? And then they do not deform and they do not generate heat, okay? An example of this, and we like to think of things that are bouncy, okay? If you deform it, it's probably not going to bounce back right, correct? Like you think of like a spitball. If I throw a spitball against the wall, is it going to bounce off the wall? No, it's going to stick, okay? It's going to change shape. So that would be an inelastic collision. That would not be an elastic collision, okay? Well, there's a reason why I'm not using that one right now, okay? There's a reason why I'm not using that one right now. Okay, so the example of this would be a cue ball strikes another ball, the cue ball stops, the momentum's transferred to another ball, okay? No heat is generated. Does the shape of the ball change? No. So that would be an elastic collision. Okay, that would be an elastic collision. Big thing is there, no heat and no change in shape. And then the elastic would be the opposite, okay? Would be the opposite. They change shape, they distort, and they generate heat. Now, what I think is this, you want to think of a sticky collision. That example I just had of throwing the spitball against the wall would be a very good example of an inelastic collision, okay, because it sticks. But you know, you could read all those things. And this is why I didn't use a basketball, and I'll use again the same example is that billiard ball example I used. There is a little bit of heat generated, okay? There's a little bit of heat generated, but it is not a lot. We know that a cue ball and a billiard ball, pool ball are going to slow down because of friction, okay? The ball will slow a little bit, but but not a whole lot. Most of the time, those forces, when we're talking about this, are negligible, okay? They're negligible. The big thing I want, okay, so here's my question. When you drop a bouncy ball on the floor, is it an elastic or an inelastic collision? What do you think the answer is? You would say elastic. Most people would say that, correct? Because it's going to bounce back, okay? You're wrong, but you're right, okay? Nothing is ever purely elastic, okay? Because everything always generates a little bit of heat, okay? A little bit of heat. However, for the purpose of this class, we can consider that an elastic collision, okay? Because it's going to bounce back, okay? Bouncy means elastic, okay? Unless we're talking about something that's going to generate an exceptional amount of heat, okay, it would be an elastic collision. So now here's my next question for you. When you're driving, and your tires are colliding, when they're turning, they are colliding with the road, correct? Is that elastic or inelastic? Why? They change shape, but that's not the biggest thing with that. But yeah, they do change shape. You're correct. Asher, when they roll, it's the weight pushes down on it. That's correct. And they definitely generate heat. Okay, they definitely generate heat. Okay, so that friction in there, so with a lot of friction, is going to generate heat. Now, how can we make a tire be more elastic? So how would we, i.e., how would we make it generate less heat? Less weight of the car. That would be certainly one thing.
Depending on which tires you have, say, so you know how they've made those new tires where it's not air anymore, it's just like
So I'll get back to that. Charles was correct. You put more air in it, okay? You put more air in it, it's not going to squat it down as much, is it? So it's not going to squat as much, it's not going to deform it as much. So there's going to be less surface area in contact. So that would make it more bouncy, okay? You could also use a lighter air, okay? Does anyone's parents have green valve stem caps? Okay. Most people, when their tire gets empty, where their tire's low, they just go to the gas station or, an air compressor and air it up, correct? People do use nitrogen gas. Okay. Nitrogen gas is a lighter gas. Okay. That's where the people have those green caps on them where they don't leak out as bad. Okay. And because they're lighter, same thing we talked about you with less weight, Landon, it would make it more elastic, less friction, more elastic. Okay. So the big thing we're talking about today is elastic collisions, okay? Elastic collisions do not deform and generate little to no heat, okay? Little to no heat is how we probably want to word that. A purely elastic collision generates no heat. That's very, very uncommon, okay? But an inelastic collision either changes its shape or it generates heat. A lot of times, I'm about a lot of heat. Okay. Another way to make something more elastic. What's gonna generate more heat? A smooth surface or a rough surface? Rough surface. Okay. So if we want to minimize the friction, okay, we would make a smoother surface and we would generate less heat. Okay. I actually saw a thing. I think it was in Kentucky yesterday. They saw it on the news. On KFS 12, they had a big truck going through and they were measuring the friction on the road. Okay. So, measuring the friction, the more friction, the more heat it's going to generate. The more heat it generates, the more inelastic the collision is. Okay. So any questions about that? You'll have a worksheet. It'll be a relatively short worksheet today. It will be due by 2:15 tomorrow. Okay. So I want to make sure we get our grades in. It won't be very long. Any questions? Thank you. Oh, I'm about to be so mad.